There is a moment, an inner threshold, when a human being stands trembling on the precipice of their own transformation. It is not a trembling of fear, but of power, of the recognition that the familiar self, the self that has always grasped and strived, is about to dissolve into something greater. In this moment, there is a quickening in the air of consciousness, as if the inner world itself is poised to rearrange. You may have sensed it, the sense that a new reality is already pressing at the door of your experience, waiting for your invitation, your acceptance, your embrace. This is not the edge of effort, but the edge of being, a crossing from doing to knowing, from outer labor to inner stance. You are not called to chase after what you desire. You are not summoned to prove your worth through performance. You are invited instead to rest in the self-evidence of your own value, to inhabit the identity of the one who is the prize. In this tradition, we do not beckon reality by sweat and toil, by endlessly seeking from the world. We become the cause, not the effect. Imagine the sun. It does not run after the planets, nor does it plead for their attention. By its very nature, it radiates, and all that moves within its system is drawn by its unwavering center. So, too, are you called to radiate, unmoving in your assumption, quietly certain in your stance. This is the law. Reality reflects your dominant inner belief and identity. Circumstances are not kings, they are servants. They bend, they shift, they reorganize themselves around your sustained assumption. This is not a hope, not a wish, but a law, repeatable, provable, always operating, whether you are aware of it or not. You are already assuming, already creating, already living in the world that matches your belief. The only question is, will you do so by default or by design? Will you direct your inner conversation or allow it to be shaped by appearances? And what happens when you decide with finality to act as if you are the prize, to dwell in the fullness and certainty of already being chosen, already being celebrated, already being enough? The world outside quivers in response. The inner stance precedes the outer evidence. The stance is not performance, it is embodiment. You do not seek, you radiate. You do not plead, you claim. You do not chase, you attract. This is not the edge of effort, but the dawn of being. You stand at the moment of revelation. The mechanics of assumption are subtle yet unyielding. When you assume a state, when you accept a new identity as your own, something fundamental shifts within the theater of your mind. The stage is cleared of old actors. Fear, doubt, and lack are dismissed. You become the central character, no longer reacting to the cues of circumstance, but radiating your own script from within. Picture the master sculptor who, before lifting his chisel, already sees the finished form within the marble. He does not doubt that the figure is there, awaiting release. He knows, he feels the presence of his creation, even when others see only stone. So it is with you. To act as if you are the prize is not to feign, not to posture, but to inwardly accept, to inwardly know, to inwardly feel that your worth is self-existent, untouchable, unarguable. The world cannot give it, nor can it take it away. When you live in the end, you dwell in the inner certainty of the wish fulfilled. This is not daydreaming, nor is it mere fantasy. It is the deliberate occupation of the state desired, the feeling of the end as present fact. You do not wait for evidence, you become the evidence. You do not negotiate with appearances, you rest in knowing. Identity precedes manifestation. Being precedes doing. Embodiment precedes performance. When you choose to assume the state of the one who is the prize, your inner dialogue softens. The frantic need to prove, to persuade, to earn dissolves. In its place arises a gentle clarity, a quiet composure. You do not ask, am I worthy? You know, I am the one chosen. I am the one celebrated. I am the one valued. The outer world, sensing the shift, begins to conform. Circumstances, people, opportunities, drawn as if by unseen cords, arrange themselves in alignment with your inner stance. The law is always operating. It is not a question of effort, but of assumption. You do not struggle to become. You simply accept that you already are. This is not performance. This is embodiment. This is not seeking. This is radiance. This is not lack. This is fullness. Consider the parable of the two seeds. One seed cast into the soil frets over the darkness, worries about the lack of sunlight, doubts whether it will ever break through to the surface. It is restless, anxious, seeking proof that growth is possible before it begins. The other seed, by contrast, rests quietly in the earth, knowing by inner law that the process is already underway. It does not require evidence to believe in its own unfolding. It simply allows itself to become what it already is in potential. The second seed does not chase the sun. The sun rises to meet it, drawn by its silent, assured unfolding. So too with you. When you act as if you are the prize, you are not striving to convince the world of your value. You are not seeking validation from without. You are standing in the certainty of your own inner worth, knowing that all conditions must ultimately reflect the state you have assumed within. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is not pride, it is presence. You are not the one who begs. You are the one who commands, not by force, but by unwavering faith in the law. The difference is profound. The first lives from lack, the second from fullness. The first seeks, the second radiates. The first is tossed by circumstance. The second is the axis around which circumstance turns. The law of assumption is not a matter of effort, but of identity. You do not become what you want by working harder. You become what you want by being it inwardly now. The world cannot help but reflect back to you what you have accepted yourself to be. And when you feel the wish fulfilled, when you rest in the sense of already having, already being, already embodying, the world, like the sun to the seed, rises to meet you. In this way, the law is tested and proven, not by force, not by anxious effort, but by the quiet certainty of your own assumption. You are not the one who waits for proof. You are the one who lives from knowing. Let us pause and observe what unfolds in consciousness when one moves from chasing to attracting, from seeking to radiating. There is a softening, as if the tightly wound springs of effort are released. The inner dialogue shifts. Where there was once a chorus of doubt, am I enough? Will I be chosen? Must I do more? There emerges a single unwavering note of certainty. I am. This is the being state, the inner stance that does not ask, but knows. The difference is subtle yet revolutionary. The one who acts as if they are the prize is not acting in the sense of pretending. They are acting in the sense of embodying. Imagine a king who, having lost his memory, wanders the streets as a beggar. His crown is hidden, his throne forgotten. Yet the moment he recalls his true identity, his movements, his words, his very presence change. He does not need to announce his kingship, it radiates from him. The world, sensing the shift, responds accordingly. So it is with you. You may have moved through the world as one seeking approval, hungering for recognition, doubting your own worth. But now you remember that you are the prize, the chosen, the celebrated. You need not announce it to the world, you need only assume it within. The law does the rest. Outer circumstances, like subjects before their king, arrange themselves in deference to your sustained assumption. This is not performance. This is being. This is not manipulation. This is revelation. You do not need to do in order to be. You simply accept your identity, and the doing flows naturally from being. No longer do you chase after love, success, or approval. You attract them, not by effort, but by the magnetic power of your assumed identity. The shift is inward, yet its effects are outward. Identity precedes evidence. Being precedes doing. Assumption precedes manifestation. Reality, ever faithful, mirrors your inner state. The law of assumption is not a tool to be wielded, but a principle to be lived. It is not something you turn on and off according to circumstance or whim. It is the constant background of your consciousness, always shaping, always creating, always organizing reality to reflect your dominant belief and identity. Most move through life as reactors, responding to circumstance, adjusting to appearances, seeking proof before they believe. But the law invites you to stand in the place of cause, not effect, to live from the inside out rather than the outside in, to dwell in the end, to feel the wish fulfilled, to know before you see. This is not a matter of effort, but of assumption. You do not strive, you accept. You do not beg, you claim. You do not chase, you attract. The world is not your master, it is your mirror. It does not command, it reflects. The more fully you embody the state of being the prize, the more faithfully the world mirrors that inner stance. It is not about doing more, trying harder, or forcing results. It is about allowing your consciousness to settle into the assumption of already being what you desire. The inner mechanics are precise. The moment you accept a new identity, your inner conversations change. You no longer ask, when will it happen? You declare, it is happening now. You no longer seek signs. You rest in knowing. You no longer perform. You embody. The law is relentless. It cannot be fooled, cannot be tricked, cannot be bypassed. It will always reflect your dominant assumption, whether conscious or unconscious. The invitation is to become conscious, to become deliberate, to become sovereign in your assumption. You are not the seeker, you are the source. You are not the effect, you are the cause. You are not the one waiting to be chosen, you are the one who chooses. When you understand that imagination creates reality, you begin to treat your inner world with the reverence it deserves. You realize that every image, every feeling, every assumption is a seed cast into the soil of consciousness. It cannot help but grow, cannot help but bear fruit. The question is not whether you are planting. The question is what you are planting. Most scatter seeds of doubt, of lack, of unworthiness, and then wonder why the harvest is bitter. But you are called to plant deliberately, to imagine wisely, to assume with authority. To act as if you are the prize is to sow seeds of fullness, of celebration, of self-evident worth. It is not about waiting for the world to confirm your value. It is about confirming it within and allowing the world to catch up. The law is impartial, non-judgmental, ceaseless. It does not reward effort. It reflects assumption. It does not recognize striving. It recognizes being. Consider the story of the artist who, alone in her studio, paints a masterpiece in secret. She does not wait for applause, does not seek approval. She creates from her own inner fullness, knowing that the work is already complete in her imagination. When at last the world discovers her art, it is not because she chased recognition, but because she radiated it from within. So it is with you. The masterpiece of your life is painted first in imagination, in assumption, in being. The world cannot help but discover what you have already accepted as true within. You do not need to convince. You need only to assume. You do not need to chase. You need only to radiate. You do not need to strive. You need only to be. The practice of living in the end is the cornerstone of this teaching. To live in the end is to inhabit now the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It is to let go of waiting, of hoping, of postponing your joy and confidence until some future event. It is to claim now the state you desire and to dwell in it as if it were already fact. This is not denial of present circumstances. It is refusal to be defined by them. It is not escapism. It is creative sovereignty. The world outside may present you with evidence to the contrary, but you do not waver. You know that the inner state precedes the outer fact. You do not need to see to believe. You believe and then you see. This is the power of assumption. You do not wait for the world to treat you as the prize before you feel like the prize. You feel it first, and the world responds in kind. The inner state is primary. The outer circumstance is secondary. You are not at the mercy of appearances. Appearances are at the mercy of your sustained assumption. This is the secret of all transformation. To live as if, to feel as if, to know as if, until the world cannot help but reflect your inner certainty. The mechanics are precise. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the cause. The outer evidence is the effect. You do not perform to become. You embody because you are. You do not seek to prove. You rest in knowing. This is not hope. This is faith. This is not effort. This is being. You do not wait, you claim. The law is always at work. The only question is whether you will use it consciously or allow it to operate by default. Revision is the mighty act of reclaiming your authorship over your own story. It is the refusal to allow past events, memories, or disappointments to dictate your present identity. Most live as prisoners of yesterday, chained to the stories of lack, rejection, or failure. But you are invited to become the master of your narrative, to revise the past from the fullness of your present assumption. Revision is not denial, It is creative reinterpretation. It is the act of seeing in memory what you now choose to be true. You do not argue with what happened. You assume the state you desire and let the memory rearrange itself in service of your new identity. Imagine the playwright who, unsatisfied with the first version of her script, rewrites the ending. The actors follow suit. The story changes. The audience is moved in a new way. So it is with you. When you revise, you do not beg the past to be different. You declare it so in your imagination, and the law reflects your new assumption. The bitterness of rejection becomes the sweetness of being chosen. The pain of lack becomes the celebration of abundance. The world outside, sensing your new stance, reorganizes itself to match. You are not the victim of circumstance. You are the author of your reality. You do not need to perform. You need only to be. You do not seek to undo the past. You embody the new version and let the law handle the details. This is not effort. This is sovereignty. This is not striving. This is authorship. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not at the mercy of memory. Memory is at the mercy of your assumption. SATS, state akin to sleep, is the sacred doorway through which assumption becomes fact. In the quiet moments before sleep, when the mind is most receptive, you are invited to impress upon consciousness the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is not about technique. It is about acceptance. You do not force, you allow. You do not strive, you surrender. In this twilight state, the barriers between imagination and reality dissolve. The world of appearances recedes, and the inner world becomes vivid, palpable, real. In SATS, you do not rehearse lack, you rehearse fullness. You do not replay rejection, you relive acceptance. You do not revisit disappointment, you dwell in triumph. The law, always active, takes your sustained feeling and makes it fact. The mechanics are precise. What you assume in this receptive state is impressed upon the subconscious, and the outer world cannot help but conform. You are not the one who pleads, you are the one who claims. You are not the one who waits, you are the one who knows. The world, sensing your new stance, reorganizes itself to reflect your assumption. This is not magic. This is law. This is not hope. This is certainty. You do not need to see how. You need only to know that it is so. In SATS, you rest in the end, feeling the wish fulfilled, and the law does the rest. You are not required to perform. You are invited to be. You do not need to strive. You need only to assume. Imagination is the womb of creation, the silent architect of all experience. It is not a faculty to be used occasionally, but the very ground of being. Every image, every feeling, every assumption is a blueprint for reality. The law is indifferent to your doubts, unmoved by your fears, and unyielding in its fidelity to your dominant assumption. You are always imagining, always creating, always shaping the world in your own image. The only question is whether you do so consciously or unconsciously. Most imagine lack, rehearse disappointment, and then lament the repetition of old patterns. But you are called to imagine deliberately, to assume with authority, to embody the state you desire. To act as if you are the prize is to allow imagination to rest in fullness, to create from the certainty of already being chosen, already being celebrated, already being enough. The world outside is not the source. It is the effect. You do not need to manipulate circumstances. You need only to rearrange your inner world. The law is faithful, ceaseless, exacting. It does not reward effort. It reflects assumption. It does not respond to striving. It responds to being. You are not the one who reacts. You are the one who initiates. You are not the one who waits for proof. You are the one who creates it. Imagination is not fantasy. It is reality in seed form. The seed, once planted, cannot help but grow. You do not need to force the process. You need only to assume the end. There is a sacred rhythm to creation, an ebb and flow between inner acceptance and outer manifestation. The world is not separate from you. It is your reflection. What you hold as true within, the world must reflect without. There is no exception, no accident, no deviation from this law. When you act as if you are the prize, you are not pretending. You are revealing. You do not need to prove. You simply embody. You do not seek to attract. You radiate from fullness. The sun does not beg for attention. It shines. The rose does not plead for appreciation. It blooms. So, too, are you called to be the cause, not the effect. The law is ceaseless. It never sleeps, never falters, never pauses. It is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. Circumstance is at the mercy of your assumption. The difference is not in what you do, but in who you are. Being precedes doing. Identity precedes evidence. Assumption precedes manifestation. The inner stance is the seed. The outer world is the harvest. You are not required to labor in the fields of effort. You are invited to plant in the garden of assumption. The law is faithful. It cannot be otherwise. The only question is whether you will claim your authorship or abdicate it to circumstance. You are not the effect. You are the cause. You are not the one who waits. You are the one who knows. Every moment you are standing at the crossroads of assumption. You can choose to react to appearance, to seek validation from without, to chase after what you desire. Or you can choose to rest in being, to claim your worth from within, to radiate the certainty of already being the prize. The world will always present you with evidence to the contrary. It will tempt you to doubt, to strive, to perform. But the law is unwavering. It does not bend to appearance, it bends to assumption. It does not respond to effort, it responds to being. The inner mechanics are precise. The moment you accept a new identity, your perceptions change. You see opportunity where others see obstacle. You notice favor where others see rejection. The outer world, sensing your new stance, reorganizes itself in your favor. This is not chance. This is law. You are not the one who waits for proof. You are the one who lives from knowing. You are not the one who reacts. You are the one who initiates. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. The only question is whether you will use it consciously or allow it to operate by default. You are not the seeker. You are the source. You are not the effect. You are the cause. You are not the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one who chooses. To act as if you are the prize is to reverse the natural order of the world. The world says, prove your worth and you will be chosen. The law says, assume your worth and the world will reflect it. The world says, chase after what you desire. The law says, radiate and what you desire is drawn to you. The world says, wait for evidence before you believe. The law says, believe and the evidence will appear. This is the great reversal, the sacred paradox. You do not need to perform to become. You embody because you are. You do not need to seek to prove. You rest in knowing. The mechanics are precise. What you assume as true within, the world must reflect without. There is no exception, no accident, no deviation from this law. The only question is whether you will stand in your authority or abdicate it to circumstance. You are not the one who waits for permission. You are the one who grants it. You are not the one who begs for acceptance. You are the one who declares it. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. Circumstance is at the mercy of your assumption. Being precedes doing. Identity precedes evidence. Assumption precedes manifestation. The world is a mirror, not a judge. It does not decide your worth. It reflects your assumption. You are not on trial. You are on display. The only question is what you choose to display. Lack or fullness, doubt or faith, seeking or radiating. The law is impartial, ceaseless, exacting. It does not reward effort. It reflects assumption. It does not respond to striving. It responds to being. You are not the victim of circumstance. You are the author of your reality. You do not need to convince the world of your worth. You need only to assume it. The world will catch up. The outer rearranges itself around the sustained belief of the inner. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not required to perform. You are invited to be. You do not need to strive. you need only to assume. The shift is inward, yet its effects are outward. Identity precedes evidence. Being precedes doing. Assumption precedes manifestation. Reality, ever faithful, mirrors your inner state. The only question is whether you will direct your assumption or allow it to be shaped by appearance. You are not a beggar at the door of reality. You are its master architect. You do not wait for permission to be chosen. You declare it as fact. You do not plead for recognition. You assume it as your birthright. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. It does not hear your words. It hears your assumption. It does not see your effort. It sees your being. The world outside is not the source. It is the effect. You do not need to manipulate circumstance. You need only to rearrange your inner world. The law is faithful, ceaseless, exacting. It does not reward effort. It reflects assumption. You are not the one who reacts. You are the one who initiates. You are not the one who waits for proof. You are the one who lives from knowing. Imagination is not fantasy. It is reality in seed form. The seed, once planted, cannot help but grow. You do not need to force the process. You need only to assume the end. The law is always at work. The only question is whether you will use it consciously or allow it to operate by default. The time for seeking is over. The time for striving is past. You are not called to chase after what you desire, to prove your worth, to earn your place. You are invited to rest in being, to claim your worth from within, to radiate the certainty of already being the prize. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not the one who waits for evidence. You are the one who lives from knowing. You are not the one who reacts. You are the one who initiates. The mechanics are precise. What you assume as true within, the world must reflect without. There is no exception, no accident, no deviation from this law. The only question is whether you will stand in your authority or abdicate it to circumstance. You are not the effect, you are the cause. You are not the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one who chooses. The law is always at work. The only question is whether you will use it consciously or allow it to operate by default. Let the old stories fall away. Let the memory of lack, of striving, of not being enough dissolve in the light of your new assumption. You are not the one who pleads. You are the one who claims. You are not the one who waits. You are the one who knows. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. Circumstance is at the mercy of your assumption. Being precedes doing. Identity precedes evidence. Assumption precedes manifestation. The inner state is the seed. The outer world is the harvest. The law is faithful. It cannot be otherwise. The only question is whether you will claim your authorship or abdicate it to circumstance. You are not the effect, you are the cause. You are not the one waiting to be chosen. You are the one who chooses. Test the law. Stand in your assumption. Rest in being. Let the world rearrange itself around your certainty. Do not seek, radiate. Do not strive, embody. Do not wait, claim. The law is always at work, always reflecting, always creating. You are not required to perform. You are invited to be. You do not need to strive. You need only to assume. The shift is inward, yet its effects are outward. Identity precedes evidence. Being precedes doing. Assumption precedes manifestation. Reality, ever faithful, mirrors your inner state. Stand now as the one who is the prize. Remain faithful to your assumption, and watch as the world reveals the truth you have claimed within.